Good morning, good evening. I must say good evening because for you it is very late over there.
Yes, yes, it is.
I'm Marsha here. We have been in touch on on Facebook and Messenger. It's really such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
We Yes. This is let me just introduce you to Zulfikar Hussain. He is going to be the compare for the show for your
Uh,
talk. And
Hello,
Good morning. Good morning, sir. Good morning.
good morning.
I mean, it's morning this way. Good evening to you.
Well, it'll be in another hour, it'll be morning yet.
Oh, thank you so much, sir, for staying up that late.
Yeah.
Am I audible? Is everything fine
Yes,
technically?
yes,
All right.
perfectly.
Thank you, sir.
so we have all our classes in their classrooms, and the teachers will be going on their laptops and sharing it with the children. So I think we have our youngest participants in this meeting today, grade 5. They are
Mhm.
about 10 years old. And then from there on, it's grade 6. There are two sections, grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. They will all be on Zoom. All right. I mean,
Okay.
their teachers would have brought them on Zoom. And we are all looking forward to hearing from you. So I'm just waiting for more of them to come in before I formally welcome you.
Yeah, I had one request though.
Yes.
When you said we're going to have a question and answer session at the
Yes.
end.
Yes. Do
Uh,
you want the questions?
no, I would like somebody to repeat the questions in the mic because sometimes when the students shout from end of the classroom or somewhere, it's not very audible to
Yeah.
some
Uh,
garble.
Sir, actually, I have compiled their questions, and I will be directing them to you, so
Okay, that would be
that.
great.
Sure, absolutely.
So there will be no confusion then as far as, children shouting things. I think in
Yeah.
our excitement, we may, as adults, shout some things. Okay. All right. So we've got grade 5, 6 has come in. 6 is in.
Uh, joining
We have
this.
11, Mr. Rahul Thakkar over there. He's a homeroom teacher for grade 11. And we've got Miss Beenal Gilani, who's a librarian. Beenal, you can come on camera so Mr. Gandhi can see you. Miss Savita Agarwal, she's a Hindi teacher. Miss Madhuri Katkol, she's a grade 6 homeroom teacher. Beenal, that's Mr. Arun Gandhi there.
Good morning, sir.
Hello, good.
Hello.
So Zulfi, you can take over till everyone comes in, and then I will say the formal welcome to Mr. Gandhi.
Sure, sure. We are still waiting in for, I think, grade 6A, if I'm not mistaken, and I think grade 12's in. All right. Good morning, Portis. Welcome to the inauguration of our celebration week of our 75th Independence Day, which is right around the corner. On the outset, I would like to welcome our chief guest, Mr. Arun Gandhi, our head of school, Kaiser sir, teachers, and all the learners at Portis. Before we begin, I would like to thank Ms. Marsha for being in touch with Mr. Gandhi and having him here. She also was very instrumental in having his great granddaughter with us, Kasturi, and also Tushar sir.
His son.
Am I
Yeah.
his son? And now we
Yeah,
have Mr. Gandhi with us, Mr. Arun Gandhi. I think if given the opportunity, Ms. Marsha would have definitely had Mahatma also coming in to give us a talk.
yeah, you're going from the bottom up, so it could end up with.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much, sir, for being here. And Ms. Marsha would like to say a formal welcome to you.
So, good morning, one and all. I think most of you have come in, and I would just like to welcome Arun Gandhi to our little discussion here to inaugurate the independence, 75 years of Indian Independence Week. And we're really privileged to have such an esteemed guest here. He is at the moment in New York, so it's very late. I think it must be about 11:30 p.m. there.
It's
So
about
this
11
is
o'clock.
11 o'clock. So I'm so glad that he agreed to come at this strange hour and join us. And I have been a great fan of yours because of your philosophy of nonviolence. And welcome to our school, PODAR-ORT International. I would just like to tell you that our school has been closely associated with the Mahatma. He
Mhm.
was, yes, I think you may be aware of the history behind it. So we're really very privileged to have you here in our midst. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Miss Marsha. Uh, Talking about Mr. Gandhi, I had to go through an extremely long Wikipedia page. So I'm trying to try my best to sum it up for everyone. Mr. Arun Manilal Gandhi is an Indian American actor, socio-political activist, and the son of Manilal Gandhi, thus a grandson of nationalist leader Mahatma Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi has a very long list of achievements and has been a participant and keynote speaker at various national and international forums. Mr. Arun Gandhi founded the M.K. Gandhi Institute of Nonviolence, hosted by the Christian Brother University. This institute has dedicated to applying the principles of nonviolence at both local and global scales. As co-founders of the institute, both husband and wife received the Peace Abbey Courage of Conscience Award for bringing the legacy of Gandhi to America. In 2003, Mr. Gandhi was one of the signatories to Humanism and its Aspirations, which is the Humanist Manifesto #3. In 2017, he published The Gift of Anger and Other Lessons from My Grandfather Mahatma Gandhi. In March 2014, he wrote Grandfather Gandhi, a children's book that Arun Gandhi co-authored with Bethany Hegedus. He also published Legacy of Love, My Education in the Path of Nonviolence. He has been all over the world spreading his belief in the power of nonviolence. And as I was going through them, it took me a while to realize that I might end up taking more time explaining his achievements than he would take giving his message. So without further much ado, it is an absolute pleasure and honor to now welcome our guest of honor to give us his message. Sir.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here with all of you, and I've been looking forward to this evening for a long time, and I'm glad that I got this opportunity. I would like to be the first to wish all of you a very pleasant and happy Independence Day, and especially this independence, which is 75 years old now, and a very significant milestone. But I think more than rejoicing on this occasion, we should reflect on where are we going and where is our country going and what can we do to make it better and put it on the right path. It's not the sacrifice of 1 or 10 people who achieved this independence, the sacrifice of millions of people that brought about independence of the country. And all those millions of people had a vision for this country. They wanted this country to be a great country, to build on the culture that we have, traditional culture of peace and nonviolence and harmony in our societies, and create an ideal society or near ideal society in the world. so that others could look forward to creating a similar country. But we find today, after 75 years, that we have gone astray, that, we have focused a lot on material gains. There are, India is becoming materially very wealthy, powerful in one sense. But in another sense, we see that we are dividing the country between the rich and the poor. There are two distinct Indias that we can see from afar. When you come out, you can see this more clearly, that we are creating a highly westernized, educated, affluent Indian society. And then on the other hand, we have a totally impoverished, uh, ignorant people living in maybe 75, 80 or 100 years backwards. So we shouldn't be content with that, because it's not just the material gains that we should be concerned about, but we need to have moral gains too. Materialism and morality have an inverse relationship. When one increases, the other decreases. So the more materialistic we become, the less moral we are. And we can see this in many of the Western countries, including the United States, that because of the emphasis on materialism, we see morality dropping way down, uh, you know, uh, uh, and and that's not a very good situation for any society. Least of all, a society as ancient as India, where we have a very powerful tradition that we ought to be building on, but not abandoning that tradition. So I hope that all of you young people who are going to inherit India and be leaders of India, that you would find ways of bringing the country back on track and creating a society where all of us, whatever our religion or uh, belief or philosophy or race or color, we would all be living in harmony with each other and working with love and respect for each other. Grandfather had a very open mind as far as religion was concerned. He said religion is like climbing a mountain. We are all going up ultimately to the same peak. So why should it matter to anybody which side of the mountain we choose to climb up from? So if somebody wants to go up the Islamic way, or the other wants to go up the Hindu way or the Christian way or the Buddhist way, it doesn't matter. We are all ultimately going to meet at the same peak there. And that means that we need to learn to respect all the religions, respect everybody's way of worship, and treat every religion as we treat our own. And that is what he practiced in his life all through. I don't know whether you are aware of this, but he used to have prayer services every morning and evening. And hundreds and sometimes thousands of people would attend those prayer services. And his prayers included hymns from every religion of the country. Hindu prayers, Muslim prayers, Christian prayers, Buddhist prayers. We all sat together in one huge big ground, and we all sang these hymns together. And it brought us all closer. and gave us that respect for all the different religions of the world. So we should have that kind of a relationship with each other and not um, discriminate against different religions and different peoples. And that is very important thing. But I was very lucky to have spent 2 years with my grandfather, 2 of the last years of his life. And I learned a lot from him in small ways. He had a knack of teaching very important lessons through very small and incidents that happened during the day. He never sat me down and lectured to me. But whenever something occurred, he would use that incident to weave a lesson around that uh, episode. To share with you one of those episodes, I was coming back from school. This was in Pune when he was living in Pune, undergoing nature cure treatment there. And I was with him at the nature cure center. And I was getting private tuition from Walji Govindji Desai. And one day I was coming back home from the tuition and I had a pencil and it was about 3 inches long. And I thought to myself, I should have a better pencil. This is too small for me to use. And without a second thought, I just threw the pencil away because I was so sure that grandfather would give me a new pencil when I asked him for one. But that evening, when I met grandfather and asked him for a new pencil, instead of giving me one, he subjected me to many questions. He wanted to know how the pencil became small and where did I throw it away and why did I throw it away and on and on. And I couldn't understand why he was making such a fuss over a little pencil until he told me to go out and look for it. And I was shocked. I said, imagine going out and looking for a little pencil that I had discarded in the late evening. It was already getting dark. So I made that excuse and I thought he would say, okay, forget about it. But instead, he gave me a torchlight and he sent me out with a torch and he said, go and look for the pencil and bring it to me. So I went out and I started looking for the pencil, and people were ridiculing me on the roadside. They were asking me what precious thing that you lost, and when I told them it was a little pencil, they would laugh at me and say there must be a gold pencil or something that you're looking for. But it just added to my aggravation. But finally, when I did find the pencil and brought it to him, he said, now I want you to sit here and learn two very important lessons. First lesson is that even in the making of a simple thing like a pencil, we use a lot of the world's natural resources. And when we throw them away, we are throwing away the world's natural resources. And that is violence against nature. And the second lesson is that because in an affluent society we can afford to buy all these things in bulk, we overconsume the resources of the world. And because we overconsume them, we are depriving people elsewhere of these resources, and they have to live in poverty, and that is violence against humanity. And that was the first time I realized that all of these little things that we do every day, consciously and unconsciously, things that we consume and overthrow and destroy because we have so much of it and we can afford to do it, that all of that amounts to violence. But he didn't stop at that. He made me draw a family tree of violence. just as we do a family tree, with the grandparent and then the parents and the siblings and so on, how the tree grows. Well, in the same way, he made me draw a tree of violence, with violence as the grandparent, and physical violence and passive violence as the two branches. And every day before I went to bed, I had to analyze and examine everything that I had experienced during the day. Things that I may have done to other people, or people may have done to me, or things that I may have read about or seen. All of that had to be examined and put on that tree in their appropriate places. Now, physical violence is something that we are very aware of because we see it all the time, we experience it, and we perpetrate it. It's all the kind of violence where we use physical force against somebody or the other. All the killings and beatings and wars and murders and rapes and all of these things that happen every day in society. That is physical violence, and that we are very aware of. But what we are not aware of is the passive violence that we commit. And that is the kind of things that we do without using any physical violence, which hurt people. Now, you'll be surprised when you do this exercise, which was basically a way of internal examination to find out my own weaknesses. And when I began to do this exercise, I was able to fill up a whole wall in my room with acts of passive violence. The physical violence didn't grow very much because there's a limit to what you can do physically. But the passive violence grew endless. And the way I had to determine whether this is passive violence or not was to ask myself the question, if somebody were to do this to me, would I be helped by it or would I be hurt by it? And if I came to the conclusion that it would hurt me, then that would be passive violence. And, when I filled up the whole wall in my room, I realized how much passive violence I was committing in my own life. And when I realized how much passive violence I was committing, I was then able to do something to change that and stop committing those passive violences and improve my attitudes. So we can make a change in ourselves only when we acknowledge that we have a problem or we have a difficulty. If we don't acknowledge it and if we ignore the weaknesses within us, then those weaknesses just grow within us and we can never attend to them. So it's very important that we acknowledge the weaknesses. And the way to acknowledge those weaknesses is by self-examination and also by putting it down in black and white on the wall or on a piece of paper or a notebook or whatever you want to do. And after I did this, grandfather explained to me the connection between the two. He said, we commit passive violence every day, all the time, consciously and unconsciously. And that generates anger in the victim. And the victim then resorts to physical violence to get justice. So it is passive violence that fuels the fire of physical violence. So logically, if we want to put out that fire of physical violence, we have to cut off the fuel supply. And since the fuel supply comes from each one of us, we have to be the change we wish to see in the world. If we don't change ourselves, we will never change the world. And change cannot come from top down. It has to come from within each one of us. Each one of us has to make that conscious effort to become the change. One thing that grandfather used to make me do every day when I was living with him was every morning when I got up, I had to tell myself that I am going to try to be a better person today than I was yesterday. And then I had to make an effort to be a better person. And that meant that I had to consciously, continuously look at myself and look at my weaknesses and look at the wrong things within me and change those things and become a better person. And we all have many faults. We all have many weaknesses, and we live with them. When I go out, and even here in the United States, when I go out and speak, I hear a lot of young people say, well, I am what I am, and you just got to accept it. We are not what we are, and nobody needs to accept you for what you are. We are not here to exist from morning till night or from birth to death. We are here for a purpose. And for the very least, the purpose for each one of us is to ensure that our presence on this earth leaves a better impact or leaves this earth a little better than we had seen it. And that means that we have to make that conscious effort to improve ourselves and through us improve the world that we are living in. It's not, a lot of young people also feel, and well, a lot of your old people also felt the same way, that once you get your degree or something from the university, your education is complete, finished. You don't have to learn anymore. That is absolutely wrong. Because learning is a lifelong experience. You're every moment of the day, every day you are learning something new. The only difference is that when you are learning in school, you have a teacher, you have textbooks, and you learn from them. But in life, you don't have teachers and you don't have textbooks. You have experiences. And it is through those experiences that you learn good things and bad things. And once you have that understanding, then you will be able to reject the bad things and absorb the good things. So you have to have, a, in that kind of learning in life, it is curiosity that teaches you. And that curiosity can teach you only if you have an open mind. And that was something else that my grandfather used to always insist on. He said, your mind should be like a room with many open windows. Let the breeze flow in from all of them, but refuse to be blown away by any one of them. Now imagine if you were sitting in a room where there were no windows at all. After a while, that room would become unlivable. This air would be stale and everything, it would be impossible for anybody to live in that room. But if it had many windows and if there was fresh air blowing in from those windows, the air would be rejuvenated and you would be rejuvenated and you would be able to live happily in that kind of a room. So that is what our minds should be. It should be like a room with many open windows and let all the breeze come in from all the directions, but refuse to be blown away by any one of them. So these are some of the important things that I learned from grandfather, and I think perhaps one of the most important thing that I learned was about anger. I grew up in South Africa, where there was a lot of prejudice, and we were constantly looked down upon and discriminated against because of the color of our skin. And sometimes it took the form of physical abuse. And it was very, dehumanizing experience. And a few times I lost my temper and I wanted to fight back again. And that's when my parents brought me to India and left me with grandfather. And grandfather taught me that anger is like electricity. It's just as useful and just as powerful, but only if we use it intelligently. But it is just as deadly and destructive if we abuse it. So just as we channel electrical energy and use it for the good of humanity, we must learn to channel anger in the same way so that we can use that energy intelligently for the good of humanity rather than abuse that energy and cause death and destruction. Now, unfortunately, today, nobody ever speaks about anger. Nobody wants to teach anger. Nobody speaks about it. Everybody just lets you find your own way of dealing with the anger. And the result is that we all end up abusing anger. And by abusing anger, we cause violence and death and destruction. And it just escalates and grows and continues to um, grow exponentially. So it's very important for us to learn this lesson that we need to, to learn to use the anger intelligently and constructively for the good of society rather than abuse it. Now, to do this, it's not a very easy thing. And it's not something that you can do in one day or one week you learn everything about it. It's a daily experience. Although I learned about this when I was 12 years old, I am now 88 years old and I'm still learning ways of dealing with anger. And that is because um, there are new challenges every day coming up and you have to learn to face those challenges. But what can help you in learning to face those challenges is your ability to control your mind. Now, you will see, if you reflect on your own self, you will see that even as you are sitting here listening to me talking to you, that your mind is racing and in different directions. There are probably a dozen different thoughts going through your mind at the same time, thinking about what movie you're going to see or what you're going to have for lunch or what you're going to do later. And to that extent, your mind is distracted. You're not completely in control of it. So we need to learn how to control our minds, to be able to focus on what we are doing at this moment and not let it stray and go around everywhere. And to do that, he used to give me an exercise to do. We do a lot of physical exercises because we are conscious of wanting a strong physical body. But we don't do any mental exercises. And we assume that just learning or going to school or cramming your brains with lessons, that is enough mental exercise. That is not. It's like in the computer language, you can fill the computer with all kinds of software. But if that computer doesn't have the capacity to deal with it, all that software is not going to be meaningful. So you can fill your mind with a lot of knowledge, but if your mind is not in your control, all that knowledge is going to be not much of much use. So what he made me do was to sit quietly in a room every day for a few minutes and hold in front of me something that gave me pleasure to look at. It could be a photograph or it could be a flower or whatever it is. Hold that in front of me. And for 1 minute, I had to focus my entire attention on that object and then close my eyes and see how long I could keep that object in my mind's eye. In the beginning, I found that the moment I closed my eyes, the object vanished because I didn't have that control over my mind. But when I began to do this exercise regularly every day, I found that I could keep that object more and longer in my mind. And to that extent, my mind was coming under my control. So this is a very important exercise and a very important lesson because today it has been found by experts at Harvard University that more than 85% of the violence that we experience in our lives is generated by anger. So if we learn to use anger intelligently, we would be able to reduce violence by 85%. And that's a very substantial amount. So it's very important for us to learn about anger and not feel ashamed of it. What we need to be ashamed of is the way we abuse anger. It's not anger itself that we should be ashamed of, but the way we abuse anger. So these are lessons that help me considerably in molding my life and being able to bring out the compassion and the love and the respect that all of us have within us, which we suppress, and bring that out. Unfortunately, today, because as I said earlier, that in our materialistic pursuit, we have allowed all the goodness in us to be suppressed and all the evil and the bad things to come up and determine our lives. So we have become greedy, we have become exploitative, we exploit each other, we want to grab as much of the cake as we can. We don't care about other people, we don't care about the poor people. And so, if we cannot have a cohesive society if everybody is pulling in different directions. So the only way we can create that cohesive society is by learning to respect and understand and accept everybody for who they are. So with these few lessons, I hope that it will do as much good for you as it did for me, and I wish all of you good luck in your life. And I truly believe that you can be great leaders of the country, and you can change the course that the country has taken and put it on the right direction, and let India become a powerful example for the rest of the world to follow. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and for listening to me with such patience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. That was truly inspiring. We all loved the anecdotes that you shared with your grandfather. It was amazing. Audience members, the second person you see on screen, we already had him for one of our celebrations, but we would like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Arun Gandhi's son, Mr. Tushar Gandhi. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be sharing this screen with my father and once again listening to it. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely, sir. And since we have you here, there are a few questions that our students have, and I think both of y'all would be able to weigh in to those questions. So the first one is, how have the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi helped you in your life, both professionally as well as a human being?
You'll have to ask, you'll have to say who you're
So,
addressing.
sir, you may begin, and then Tushar sir could weigh in.
Okay, as you know, as I said, my whole lecture was based on that. So it has helped me considerably in learning about human nature, about human beings, and it has brought out all the goodness, compassion, the love, the respect, the concern for the country, the concern for the world. You know, no country in the world can live by itself, just as no person can live by himself or herself. What pains me today when I go around the world and see that in every country of the world, the foreign policy is based on what is good for that country. And that means that that country is going to exploit the rest of the world to get what is good for them and not care about the consequences on the world. And that is a very short-sighted policy, and that is what has brought us to this level today, when we are concerned about ecology and environment and the future of civilization. So it's important for us to be conscious of the world. We may act locally, but we have to have a more international vision and see the consequences of every country on the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Tushar sir, would you like to say something on that matter? So you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I learned the lessons secondhand from my father and my grandmother. So the one thing that has helped me is the sense of responsibility. I was always taught that if you have to be responsible for life, and you have to take responsibility for everything, not just credit for the success, but responsibility for things that go wrong also, and not just accepting that okay, I am to blame for what's going wrong or what's the wrong things happening, but then take responsibility to try and set them right, because unless we do that, that's never going to change. And so
absolutely,
I feel that for me, the lesson of being responsible for everything has helped me a lot in my life.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. This was the question by Ria from grade 12. Now there's a question from a girl, Kiara, from grade 6. So this question is directed to Mr. Arun Gandhi, because he was the one who lived in South Africa for a while. So how did you live with all the violence and the inequality that you faced in your life at that point of time, or even after, if it ever occurred?
Well, it was a very difficult thing, because in South Africa, everybody was considered anybody who was not white was black, and everybody was discriminated against. And as I said, sometimes that discrimination became physical, and you were physically abused simply because you were the wrong skin color. So it was very humiliating and painful way of living. You're living in fear constantly. We hesitated to go to many places because we were not very sure whether we would be welcomed there or not. And it's a very very dehumanizing way of living. And it leaves a scar on you, especially if you are, you know, sensitive person and um, you know, when you are kind of well, let's just say sensitive. And give you an example. After living in South Africa under those circumstances for nearly 23 years, when I came to India, um, for a long time, I couldn't enter the Taj Mahal Hotel. And whenever there was a need for me to go to the Taj Mahal Hotel, I always shrank back again and I couldn't get in. And one day my wife asked me, "Why are you acting this way?" And then I told her, I said, "I don't know whether we are allowed to go in and whether somebody will insult me." And she would keep reminding me, "This is India. This is not South Africa, and nobody will stop you from going into Taj Mahal Hotel." So, that kind of scar left behind, and it takes a long time for one to get over it. I still find myself sometimes here in the United States also, um, not being too sure about uh, acceptance and whether the white people, will insult me or something. So I'm always kind of cautious and kind of, hesitant to go to places.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. That's so beautiful to know that even though you were scarred at an early age, you did not resort to being angry for the rest of your life. You chose a
Right.
different path, and you chose the path to make people believe in the power of non-violence. So thank you, sir. We're going to wrap up, sir, with the question that I think is most pertinent for all of us here today, is the fact that what are the important takeaways we as the youth can take away from the life of Mahatma Gandhi?
I think his life was a very open life. It was a very simple philosophy. He wanted all of us to bring out the goodness in us and let the goodness shine and determine the course of our lives. And if all of us can do that, bring out the love and the respect and the compassion and understanding and acceptance, all these good virtues, if we can allow that to dominate our thinking and our attitudes and our friendships and our relationships, we would be able to make a very big difference in this world. But unfortunately, as I said earlier, we are so obsessed with making money that we will use any means possible to do that. And I'm not speaking individually, I'm talking about both individuals as well as nations. And we see the consequence of that today, that it has torn the world apart, and we are really still pursuing the same way. And it looks like we are on a downward slope, and we just can't seem to be able to reverse back from it. So I still have hope that the new generation, the younger generation, will be able to learn from these experiences and change the course of nations, and save this world from self-destruction.
Thank you so much, sir. Tushar, sir, would you like to weigh in to what do you feel we should take away from the life of Mahatma Gandhi? Sir, you're mute again.
I would just like to make an announcement. I want to use this time that you've given me along with my father. So with your permission, I would like to make an announcement and make a request to your school. Tomorrow is the 80th anniversary of the Quit India movement. It was in 1942 on the 9th of August that the announcement of the final battle for freedom was made with the two slogans, Angrezo Bharat Chodo and Karenge Ya Marenge. These were the two epochal slogans that were coined by Yusuf Meher Ali and were raised in the absence of Bapu by Aruna Asaf Ali at the August Kranti Maidan, which was that time called the Gowalia attack. And today, India is endangered by an epidemic of hate. We see hate permeating into our society, coming into our homes, coming into our neighborhoods, coming into our relationships. Prejudice and hate are the dominant features in India, and we see the consequences of that in society getting manifested more and more gruesome in more and more gruesome manner, and it's imperiling not just our nation but even our own existence. And when we are so euphorically celebrating the 75th year of independence, hate is one thing that has put that independence under the greatest jeopardy ever. And so we want to launch a campaign from tomorrow to fight against hate. And for that, from tomorrow, we are launching a program called Nafraton Bharat Chhod, Hate Quit India. Unless we force hate to quit India, it's going to be very difficult for India to survive as a nation and as a grouping of United Indians. So my appeal to all of you is please start working in your school, amongst your friend circles, and in your families and society to reduce the incidences of hate, the suspicions that we have started accepting as natural between us and several other groups whom we consider not to be us. And so from tomorrow, please help us and dedicate yourself to not only shout the slogan Nafraton Bharat Chodo, but to live that. And as my father said, it starts with us. So before hate can quit India, hate has to quit us. So this is my appeal. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And I'm sure we would all love to be a part of this campaign and strive to becoming the ideal way to live without anger. And with that, thank you so much to both of y'all. And I would like to now request our head of school to give his message. Kaiser, sir. Kaiser, sir, are you in? All right. I think there might be a technical glitch because of which he might have dropped out. So till he comes back, I think we can have one more question. Could we do that, sir? With your permissions, obviously.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So another question that did come in was, we had Kabir from grade 8 having a question. Was how have you dealt with the expectations of people that you need to behave a certain way because you're the descendants of the Mahatma? Was there a pressure that you had to deal with? So Arun, sir, if you could begin.
Well, there was, when I was a teenager, I found that the legacy was becoming a very heavy burden for me. And one day I told my mother, I said, I don't know how I'm going to go through life with this legacy. It's already a big burden because there's so many expectations from people, and I can't live up to those expectations. And my mother said that it's all up to you. If you consider this legacy to be a burden, it's just going to get heavier and heavier. But if you consider this legacy to be a light that is illuminating the path ahead for you, it'll be easier for you to deal with it. So ever since then, I've looked at this legacy as a light that is showing me the right path. And that has made it easy for me to live and not live for other people's expectations, but live for the right cause.
Thank you so much, sir. Tushar, sir, how was it for you?
Well, it's always been that way for every one of us. People have expectations and they want you to be in a certain way. But I realize that greatness is not inheritable. It has to be achieved through one's own efforts and sacrifices. And so I have always maintained that, I'm as ordinary a person as every one of us is, or as extraordinary as every one of us is. And so people should not expect to find a Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi in me. But we all have the ability to find the Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi within us. It may not be the whole full-blown Mahatma persona, but the qualities that made him into a Mahatma, we all have the ability, and they're all present within us. It's just that whether we allow those to become to have an influence on us and change the way we are. So I have always lived within my limitations, and if people get disappointed by it, I can't really help it.
Thank you so much, sir. That's absolutely being human. Can I have Miss Marsha to give us her message? Miss Marsha? Miss Marsha is also facing some troubles, I see.
Looks like everybody is abandoned.
It's absolutely fine, sir. It has been an absolute pleasure to have both of you all here, and it's been an honor for me to have a sit down with two generations of the Gandhi family. I've only seen both of you all on talk shows and keynote speakers, and to have you all personally come here and give us all a message, it's an absolute honor. So thank you so much. I do realize that for Arun sir, it's getting really late. So thank you so much, sir, for taking your time and being with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and I hope that I have been able to plant a few seeds.
Oh, absolutely, sir. It's been amazing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Tushar,
much.
sir.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you very
care.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Kaiser's going to come. Kaiser's coming on.
Sir, hello.
Yeah.
So we do have Kaiser sir who's joined us ahead of school. So he'll be, he does need to have to say something.
Do you have any other questions?
So
Can
because
I ask
of,
a question?
yeah,
You
sure.
ask a question about
Miss Marsha has a question for you all. So
right, this is just a personal question I had. Do you really think that in 75 years of independence, we have achieved what Gandhiji would have wanted for our country, other than the hate part, which we have? I mean, we haven't achieved non-violence, but in other respects.
No, I don't think so. Okay. I think we got waylaid just immediately after independence, and India has not been true to Gandhi's beliefs or dreams.
Right. So
Well,
with
if you were to ask me that question, I think in 75 years, the one thing that we have achieved doing is creating an India of Bapu's worst nightmare, not his dream.
okay.
Unfortunately, we have to admit that.
So then the younger generations have a lot to do to try and reverse this and
Yeah, that is
try.
what I said in the talk, that I hope that the younger generation will see the folly of what has happened in the last 75 years and
Correct.
try to change that and take us on the right path there. What we need, we need to recognize the fact that India is a very diverse country. Diversity of all kinds exist in India, and we need to create harmony between people. And peace can only be achieved when we have harmony in society. If there is
Right.
no harmony in society, there is no peace. And, the fact that what people, when they talk about peace today, they think that the absence of war is peace. That as long as we are not fighting a war with another nation, we are at peace there, but we are not. When we are fighting each other in our neighborhoods and killing each other in our neighborhoods for stupid things because they are of a different religion or a different color or a different caste. All these are just very stupid excuses. So we have to eliminate all that and we have to create harmony in society, which is what Bapuji dreamt about and hoped that it would be achieved, but it has not been achieved. And we are nowhere near that achievement. And I'm hoping that the younger generation will take this and put us on the right path.
And I think the younger generation should not wait for the future to start acting. I think the situation is so grim that the younger generation needs to take charge right now, right today, if they want to have a better future for themselves and for this country.
Okay. All right. Yes. So as part of the younger generation, as teachers, we also have a little bit of not a great responsibility to educate our children in the right way, right? I just want to ask if there are any teachers who would like to ask any questions, any other teachers? Miss Pallavi?
Yeah, this might seem like a
Okay,
little.
I think Mr. Kaiser has joined. So, Mr. Kaiser, we have Mr. Arun Gandhi here and his son Tushar Gandhi. And could you please give a vote of thanks to them? Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for joining into this wonderful interaction, which I was part of, and then suddenly technology threw me out. I took a little time to come in. Thank you, Mr. Gandhi, Arun Gandhi, for time from such far a distance, and coming here and talking to us at this occasion of the 75th anniversary of independence of India. We believe that this interaction with the young generation of 21st century indeed has been thought-provoking and something which is really, really valuable to all of us as a community. And I feel that such interactions must happen with the generations to come, lest they forget what India and Indianness is all about, and what humanity, when looked at from the global perspective of being a global citizen. Thank you so much, Mr. Arun Gandhi, for being part and parcel of this interaction. Thank you, Mr. Tushar
Thank
Gandhi,
you.
for being coming again once more to address our kids. they are, as you know, on different classrooms they're sitting in and watching this interaction. And we are really blessed to have both of you here. And so thank you again. As we begin this year-long celebration, I just take back what you mentioned about reflections, the things which you did in the evening when you were made to reflect. I think that's so important to be part and parcel of our learning, and which in the IB we do reflect. But this kind of critical reflection, looking at not just what you did and describing what you did, but analyzing it and understanding it, and that's how a human being grows. So thank you, and God bless, and you with many more years to here to kind of keep encouraging us and reminding us our values and what India and Indianness stands for, particularly in these times, which are pretty challenging. And this generation definitely needs this kind of interaction from understanding the founding fathers of independence and the father of our nations and his viewpoint and his vision for a country like India, which is democratic, republic, socialist, secular fabric of this country, which keeps going on to have unity amongst diversity. And in these times, it was really wonderful. Thank you again. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And now you may leave the meetings. Thank you
It's
so
midnight now.
much. I absolutely, really apologies, sir, but thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. I do realize it's late. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night,
night.
sir.
Good night.
Thank you so
again.
much.
Thank you again.